O soul, intruder in nature's ignorance, armed traveler to the unseen supernal heights, thy spirit's fate is a battle and ceaseless march against invisible opponent powers, a passage from matter into timeless self.
Oh, such words, huh?
Yeah.
So we have the definition of supernal. And Sri Aurobindo gives it just one quote from Sri Aurobindo, a dictionary quote also.
I think we have read it.
Okay,
I'm finding it.
you might and we've
Yeah,
done
supernal, we have done it.
very good. And what about matter? We've done matter.
Matter, I think we did it recently. Yeah.
I think so. So what Narad is saying to Savitri is that you are coming as a soul,
Hmm.
and therefore you are an intruder in this ignorance of nature because
Okay.
you're conscious, and nature is not fully conscious. Nature is still ignorant,
Hmm.
and you are an armed traveler. Armed is very interesting to be uh, not bare and naked and impotent, but fully armed.
Yeah.
You're a traveler to the unseen, supernal heavenly heights. But your spirit's fate is a battle,
Hmm.
and it's a march that doesn't end against invisible powers who are your opponents.
Hmm.
Yours, therefore, is a passage from matter into timeless self. So we all have to make that passage from matter
Okay.
into our timeless selves, our spiritual beings. Um, and that is the meaning of our life, why
Hmm.
we have taken birth.
Hmm.
So we'll go next to
So,
450.
but
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you something. In this page, he addresses like three. He addresses humans in three ways. He says, "O king, thy fate is a transaction done." Then he says, "O man, the events that meet thee on thy road." Then he also brings, "O soul, intruder in nature's ignorance." So, in terms of the story, in terms of Narad speaking there, first he's replying to the conversation that the Ashwapati asked, and there he's addressing the king, "O king." And
Yes.
then when
Then
he
he
said
addresses humanity after that.
after that,
And
and then
lastly,
"O soul"
he
is
addresses
directed towards
Savitri.
Savitri. Okay.
So Ashwapati, humanity, and Savitri.
Yeah, because when I thought, "Oh man," I was thinking maybe he's still addressing the king, but in a humane way. But now I see the difference. Now I see he's talking to three
Yeah,
levels of consciousness, maybe.
yes, yes, very true, very
Yeah.
true. Good, very good. Okay, so now we will continue on with page 459. The way,
Adventure through blind, unforeseeing time, a forced advance through a long line of lives. It pushes its spearhead through the centuries.
we've done time, I believe, have we
Yes,
not?
yes.
Okay. But the word a forced advance through a long line of lives is such a powerful line.
Yeah,
A forced advance is a march by a troop, an
yeah,
army troop,
yeah.
going much faster than they usually go.
Mm,
And they're doing that for a particular objective under emergency conditions. So
okay.
if one has to take a forced advance, one has to move very quickly
Okay.
to achieve a particular object. Let's say to capture a city or
I understand.
to capture a group. So
Yeah.
this, so Sri Aurobindo is telling us here that our life is a forced advance
Mm.
through a long line of lives. In
Mm.
other words, we have to take birth, we have to die, we have to take birth again, and we have to die. It's a forced advance.
Yeah.
Now, he continues with that same idea or that same um, picture
Yeah.
that it pushes its spearhead through the centuries.
Mm.
Well, the spearhead here is the driving force.
Mm.
It's the leading force in the military thrust, the
Mm-hmm.
driving force, okay?
Yeah.
So this forced advance of humanity in
Mm.
evolution, who is an adventurer through this unforeseeing blind time, has to make a forced advance through this long line of lives, pushing its spearhead through the centuries.
Mm.
And then he continues. I mean, it's so beautiful.
Across the dust and mire of the earthly plain, on many guarded lines and dangerous fronts, in dire assaults, in wounded, slow retreats, holding the ideals ringed and battered fort, or fighting against odds in lonely posts, or camped in night around
The
uh,
bivouac,
the bivouac's fires, awaiting the tardy trumpets of the dawn, in hunger and in plenty and in pain, through peril and through triumph and through fall, through life's green lanes and over her desert sands, up the bald moor, along the sunlit ridge, in
serried,
serried, in serried columns with a strangling
straggling,
rear,
straggling,
straggling rear,
rear. Yes.
straggling rear, led by its nomad vanguard's signal fires, marches the army of the way lost God.
What a long sentence, huh?
Yeah, and he ended it like so perfect, like way lost God.
Yes. So what we have to take our time here. We have to really go very slowly. Huh?
Yeah.
So we begin with across the dust and mire of the
Mm-hmm.
earthly plane. Well, the mire is mud, muddy ground,
Okay.
wet, soggy bog.
Okay.
So so we have to have the vision of this army of souls
Soldiers. Yeah.
marching through this dust. Sometimes it's dust like the deserts,
Yeah.
throwing up the sand and the dust, and sometimes it's the mire of
Hmm.
this earthly
Earth.
plane. He's speaking of the earth now.
Yeah.
On many guarded lines and dangerous fronts. Well, these are both military terms.
Yeah.
A guarded line is a defended line,
In,
a line that is
in under protection,
under
or
protection.
so, yeah,
But a dangerous front is
is
the forward
army
line,
watching in the forward.
the
Yeah.
forward
Front
line
line
of,
of army.
yes, and
Yeah.
that forward line is a very difficult line because it's always going to meet opposition. It's
Yeah.
always going to confront people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then he continues with the words in dire assaults, in wounded, slow retreats.
Hmm.
Well, a dire assault is almost a disaster.
Hmm.
It's a desperate assault.
Yeah.
So when the army knows that they are outmanned, and they are maybe there's 10 people to one in the enemy's army, 10 to 1 over them. They have to make this dire assault.
Assault.
Could be disaster. It could be troublesome, very troublesome.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing. It
Yeah.
involves great fear or suffering.
Yeah.
And so then we have dire assaults, but sometimes we also have wounded, slow retreats. And an assault, of course, is a violent attack, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
An invasion, you could say.
Yeah.
A retreat is to draw back,
Yeah.
to draw.
Yeah.
So either in dire assaults or in wounded. So when the army is wounded, they make a strategic withdrawal, and that is called a slow retreat.
Yeah.
A strategic withdrawal. Then he says, holding the ideal's ringed and battered fort. Well, now he's speaking here that we have to do the word ideal. Have we not done ideal?
I don't think so.
Let's do that if we haven't done it, because it's very important here, because there are 3 words here: ringed and battered fort.
Ideal. Ideals and idealists are necessary. Ideals are the savor and sap of life. Idealists, the most powerful diviners and assistants of its purpose.
How beautiful. The human cycle, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideals are truths that have not yet effected themselves for man. The realities of a higher plane of existence which have yet to fulfill themselves on this lower plane of life and matter, our present field of operation.
And that's in the essays in philosophy and yoga. Now, it's interesting, you see, that these ideals are truths that have not yet been realized from that higher plane of existence. They have to be realized in our present field of operation, which is the earth, which is life and matter.
Yeah.
So carry on, because we still have essays in philosophy and yoga and life divine.
Certainly, ideals are not the ultimate reality. For that is too high and vast for any ideal to envisage. There are aspects of it.
So for any ideal to envisage, semicolon.
Okay. Certainly, ideals are not the ultimate reality, for that is too high and vast for any ideal to envisage. To envisage.
Good.
They are aspects of it thrown out in the world consciousness as a basis for the workings of the world power. But they are primary, the actual workings secondary. They are nearer to the reality and therefore always more real, forcible, and complete than the facts which are their partial reflection.
So interesting. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand how he's putting the uh, truth, ideal, and fact in different how in layers.
Yeah, the ultimate reality is at the top, huh?
So yeah,
And that is even too high and vast for any
vast.
ideal to
Yeah,
envisage.
yeah,
But these ideals are aspects of that ultimate reality,
yeah,
and they are the basis of the workings of the world power.
yeah,
But they are primary, and the
yeah.
workings are secondary.
Second,
That's
yeah,
interesting. Huh?
yeah,
They're nearer to the reality, and they're always more real and forcible and complete.
Yeah.
Even in the facts, because the facts are only their partial reflection.
Hmm.
Reflection, notice, huh? Their partial reflection.
Yeah.
So one more on the ideal now from Life Divine.
The ideal is an eternal reality which we have not yet realized in the conditions of our own being, not a non-existent which the eternal and the divine has not yet grasped, and only we imperfect beings have glimpsed and mean to create.
Wow. Well, he says we imperfect beings have glimpsed it, which is a very positive thing
Hmm.
for all of us. We have glimpsed is perhaps a very unique word.
Yeah.
I tell you something very personal, very beautiful, actually. Um, the first garden, the Garden of Existence, when I was speaking with Popo, and Popo you've met, I think.
No, I don't
Uh,
have.
he is now married to Mona Doctor, or
Okay.
their partners at least. Popo said to me, I glimpsed it once. And I said, so you saw the garden? He said, no, I just glimpsed it. So we haven't had that garden yet realized. They've taken out the big stone. They're doing other things, fooling around with it. But
Okay.
uh, so this idea of glimpsing things,
Hmm.
just catching a little vision of them.
Yeah.
And he had that of the first garden.
Hmm.
Okay, now we have the ideals ringed and battered fort. Well, first of all, we know what a fort is. It's a,
Narad,
yes.
in the book, in Ideals, there is also one longer passage with the supramental manifestation. We
Ah,
we read it for the next time.
uh, we have time. We could do it now.
Okay, okay.
Sure.
Ideals are truths that have not yet effected themselves for man, the realities of a higher plane of existence which have yet to fulfill themselves on this lower plane of life and matter, our present field of operation. To the pragmatical intellect which takes its stand upon the ever changing present, ideals are not truths, not reality, they are at most potentialities of future truth and only become real when they are visible in the external fact as work of force accomplished. But to the mind which is able to draw back from the flux of force in the material universe, to the consciousness which is not imprisoned in its own workings or carried along in their flood, but is able to envelop, hold, and comprehend them, to the soul that is not merely the subject and instrument of the world force, but can reflect something of the master consciousness which controls and uses it. The ideal, present to its inner vision, is a greater reality than the changing fact obvious to its outer senses.
Powerful, powerful.
Yeah.
So these ideals, and sometimes he calls the idea the real idea. We've been through that. So now holding the ideals.
We didn't do idea, Narad. The real idea last week also you asked.
Yeah.
We said we can go through it.
Yeah.
You had done it with someone else.
Yes, we didn't do it, did we?
Yes, we discussed it, and you said, maybe it was with someone else. So yeah.
Well, let's finish this and then we'll do idea uh, first thing on Thursday
Okay.
because this is so important. I want, and there's so many lines here that have to do with this kind of feeling of an army
Mm.
which has to get through, has to go through so many things. So Now the army, the army here was speaking of the soul of man as the army,
Yeah.
or collective soul of man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's holding this fort. It's holding on to the truth of its existence.
Mm.
That's its fort, huh?
Mm.
But the fort is battered. It's battered and beaten all kinds of by blows all the time.
Yeah.
We have death, we have pain, we have illness, we have envy, we have evil. We have all these things that are battering this fort.
Mm.
The fort, however, is ringed.
Yeah.
And here I think the ringed it means it's enclosed.
Okay. I thought
Because
maybe it's ring protected by the army, I mean, or the soldiers.
uh, actually it's a ringed is something that has a circular
Yeah.
feeling, huh?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this fort is, yeah, it is protected. It's enclosed,
Yeah.
and very often we have the moat in the old castles that
Mm.
ringed the
Yeah.
castle
Yeah.
and kept it from the enemy.
Mm. So, Narad, what I thought of these two lines was in the previous line, he says, in dire assaults and wounded self retreat. So, like you said, he's explaining different parts of ourself, like how, or that's how I perceive, like, like with the soul in man as he moves through man, or seeing the soul as the adventurer and us as many parts of ourselves. I felt that how within myself, like sometimes I retreat, sometimes we take charge and execute some action. Similar to that, holding ideals ringed and battered fort. It's similar to like how we take steps, also how sometimes our ideals or things like keep us guarded, but at the same time it weakens because the fort is battered, like its effect is on us.
That is true, but we are holding it.
Mm,
The only time when we don't hold it is when someone voluntarily commits suicide.
mm,
So we are holding that fort,
mm.
even though it's ringed. Okay, it's ringed. It has a protective ring around it,
Yeah,
which is for me the divine force.
yeah,
Uh, and it's yes, yes, we're battered, very often battered,
yeah,
damaged even by these blows of
yeah,
life.
yeah,
And the fort, of course, is a fortified place or a position.
yeah,
So we're fighting against lonely odds.
odds.
We're fighting against odds
Yeah,
in these lonely posts.
yeah.
Now, a post is a
Position given to the soldiers to take guard. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah. It's a specific position, yes, at a military base,
yeah.
say, yeah, or camped in night around the bivouacs fires.
I didn't
The,
understand bivouacs.
a bivouac is a temporary camp,
Okay.
and they usually have tents, and it's not very protective. It's not, you see, it's not like a fort
Understand.
which
Yeah.
has protection. Bivouac is
Protection.
you're camping out here in
Yeah.
the open
Out
field,
in
and
the
you have
open. Yeah.
10 tents there, and you're unprotected.
Yeah.
But you are awaiting the tardy trumpets of the dawn. In other words, oh, how shall we say? This is very interesting. Um, we want the dawn to come. And so those tardy trumpets are the first lights of the dawn,
Yeah.
burst, bursting out. How
Yeah.
beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're awaiting that, and
Yeah.
even though we are awaiting that they seem to be tardy to us. They're coming a little late for us. We want them
Yeah.
soon. We want the light sooner. Then the dark.
Tardy is late?
Tardy is late, yes. If you were tardy to school, you came late,
Okay.
and you gotta check for tardiness.
Okay.
Okay. In hunger and in plenty and in pain, in all the aspects of life
Yeah.
that we are going through peril and through triumph and through fall and through the green lanes of life and through the desert sands, up the bald moor. Bald is, we have moors in Scotland and Ireland.
Yeah,
We,
like where there are, I understand what is more. Like,
oh, good, very
yeah,
good.
yeah.
But bald is like natural, lacking natural growth,
Yeah, like no trees.
like bare.
Yeah.
Up the Baltimore, along the sunlit ridge, in serried columns with a straggling rear. This is very, very, shall I say, military
Hmm.
technology.
Hmm.
Something is serried, it's pressed or crowded together, especially in rows. We have troops in serried ranks in the old wars, where there was a front line, immediately behind him another line, behind them another line, and another line
Hmm.
with spears and arrows.
Okay.
Front line used to be arrows. The archers would first fire. So
Hmm.
these serried lines, these serried columns, they're actually columns of soldiers.
Hmm.
So they're pressed together in rows. Straggling rear. Straggling rear means um, the soldiers from behind are falling behind.
Hmm.
They're straying behind.
Hmm.
See, they're straggling. We say, "Hey, you stragglers, get it, get up to here, move faster."
Yeah. Yeah.
So up the Baltimore, along the sunlit ridge, in serried columns with a straggling rear, led by its nomad vanguard's signal fires. Oh gosh.
So,
Nomad, nomad, wandering,
yeah. Yeah.
wandering. Vanguard is the foremost position in an army.
Army. Yeah.
You're the ones who advance into battle,
Yeah.
led by those signal fires. Signal fires. They are the warning fires.
Hmm.
They could be it could be many things. They could be commands. They
Hmm.
could be like flares or lights that light up, and they light up the enemy's position,
Hmm.
and marches the army of the way lost God. Way lost is actually a word coined by Sri Aurobindo
Hmm.
as an adjective to
Okay.
mean one or who that has lost their way.
Yeah.
Wow, we really covered something today.
Yeah.
We do idea next week. Oh,
Yes.
oh yeah, it's after 10 already. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it is very good. We want to read from the beginning now, please.
Do we have time?
Well, we have to make time.
Okay.
Okay.
O soul, intruder in nature's ignorance, armed traveller to the unseen supernal heights, thy spirit's fate is a battle and ceaseless march against invisible opponent powers, a passage from matter into timeless self. Adventurer through blind unforeseeing time, a forced advance through a long line of lives, it pushes its spearhead through the centuries, across the dust and mire of the earthly plain, on many guarded lines and dangerous fronts, in dire assaults, in wounded slow retreats, holding the ideal's ringed and battered fort, or fighting against odds in lonely posts, or crammed in night
Oh,
around sorry,
camped.
or camped in night around the bivouacs fires, bivouacs,
bivouacs
bivouacs,
fires.
or camped in night around bivouacs fires, awaiting the tardy trumpets of the dawn, in hunger and in plenty and in pain, through peril and through triumph and through fall, through life's green lanes and over her desert lands,
Sand,
desert sands, up the bald moor, along the sunlit ridge, in serried columns with a strangling rear,
straggling.
straggling,
Not strangling, but straggling.
in serried columns with a straggling rear, led by its nomad vanguard's signal fires, marches the army of the way-lost God.
I'd like to go through this again next on Thursday
Yeah,
to
let's do that. I also
go
felt
through the
this
whole
is
thing because there are things that we haven't covered. I'd like to cover a little bit more
yes,
thoroughly.
and I also felt like I was reading too fast. So we start
Yeah,
reading. Maybe we start reading from where this begins, across the dust and mire of earthly plane.
uh, we could do that. Yes.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
thing is that you've got to work on your V's a little bit more. Also,
Okay.
there were Vanguard and other things you have to work in Vanguard.
Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Narad.
A special day today. Special day. This
And
whole
especially this
vision
last
of the
line.
soul, the soul or the collective soul as an
Yeah.
army,
Yeah.
and how he extends that and makes it so powerful and puts it in a military context
Yeah.
because it's a battle. Uh,
Hmm.
We have to understand that this life is not a piece of cake, as the common saying goes. It's not. It's a battle, and we may even be able to walk the sunlit path, but we still have to go through it.
Yeah. Like
The
he
sunlit
says,
path doesn't
sometimes
mean
wounded slow retreats.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll go through it again.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks,
Okay.
Narad.
Namaste.
Bye.